Welcome to Aurora's monthly training on hazard communication. Course objectives. Anticipate what types of chemicals you may encounter in the workplace. Recognize the types of labels used to identify chemicals and their hazards. Interpret the information on safety data sheets, SDSs, and chemical labels. Understand how to control your exposure to hazardous materials. What is the Hazard Communication Standard? In the U.S., the Hazard Communication Standard, HazCom, also known as the Right to Know law, is a federal regulation designed to protect workers from hazardous chemicals in the workplace. Whether you work in the U.S. or in another country, it is important for you to know how to safely work with and around the chemicals associated with your job. Globally Harmonized System (GHS). What is the Globally Harmonized System or GHS? GHS is a global standard for the classification and labeling of hazardous chemicals that was adopted by the United Nations in 2003. Along with GHS comes a standard look and feel for chemical labels. Safety data sheets, SDS. GHS has been adopted and is in use by many countries in the world including the US. Why use GHS? Improve quality and consistency of chemical information. Also, increase comprehension of hazards, improving worker safety. How hazard communication works. Chemical manufacturers and importeurs classify the chemicals they produce or import, and prepare labels and safety data sheets based on classifications. Chemicals are shipped to employers by chemical manufacturers, importers, and distributors. All employers receive labeled containers and safety data sheets with shipped chemicals. All employers must prepare a written hazard communication program, including a list of hazardous chemicals in the workplace. Next step is to implement the program. Employers must ensure all containers of hazardous chemicals are labeled. Safety data sheets are maintained for all hazardous chemicals. Workers are trained on program elements, hazards, and protective measures, etc. Information must be kept up to date. What is a hazardous chemical? A hazardous chemical is examples: solid, liquid, including mist, and gas, including vapor or fumes, which under normal conditions of use can cause physical or health hazard, or release of toxins into the environment. Physical hazards. Physical hazards associated with chemicals can cause an immediate danger. Physical hazards. Flammable materials can be aerosols, liquids, gases, or solids. They are defined as flammable based on their ability to flame under certain conditions. Examples include propane and acetone. Corrosive chemicals are strong acids or bases that may cause visible destruction of, or irreversible alterations of, materials including living tissue. An example of an acid is sulfuric acid, and example of a base is chlorine bleach. Compressed gases can cause explosion due to their pressurized state. Inert gases can also displace oxygen, leading to asphyxiation hazards. Examples of compressed gases include nitrogen and helium. Oxidizers are materials that may initiate or promote combustion of other materials. They can cause exothermic reactions, which give off heat. Examples of oxidizers include hydrogen peroxide and oxygen. Reactive chemicals can be unstable or water reactive. When mixed with the wrong substance, they can create a violent reaction. Examples of reactive chemicals include lithium and sodium metal. Physical hazard pictograms. Under GHS, standard pictograms tell you which chemicals present a physical hazard. Examples: reactive, flammable, oxidizer, compressed gas, corrosive. Incompatible chemicals. Incompatible chemicals are materials that may cause a hazardous reaction if they are mixed, blended, or together. Examples of incompatible chemicals are flammables and oxidizers. Acids and bases. Health hazards. Exposure to chemicals can also present a health hazard to humans. Examples of health hazards: irritants are materials that cause temporary irritation of the eye, skin, or respiratory system. Examples are ammonia and fiberglass. Sensitizers are materials that may cause an allergic reaction in certain individuals after repeated exposure. Examples include latex, rubber, and nickel. Carcinogens are materials that are suspected or known to cause cancer. Examples include asbestos and cigarette smoke. Reproductive toxins are substances that may affect the reproductive system in either males or females. Examples include formaldehyde and mercury. Asphyxiants are substances that may cause suffocation. Examples include carbon monoxide and nitrogen. Acute toxins are poisonous substances that have immediate health effects from a single exposure. Examples include arsenic and hydrogen cyanide. In addition to presenting a physical hazard, corrosives also present a health hazard to the skin and eyes. Physical hazard pictograms. Under GHS, standard pictograms tell you which chemicals present a physical hazard. Here are some examples. Irritant, sensitizer, Acute toxicity warning. Acute toxicity, danger. Corrosive. Carcinogen, reproductive toxin, other serious. Safety data sheets, SDS. Safety data sheets, SDS. Chemical manufacturers, distributors, or importers are required to provide safety data sheets, SDSs, formerly MSDSs or material safety data sheets, for each hazardous chemical to downstream users to communicate information on the chemical hazards. The information contained in the SDS is largely the same as the MSDS, except now the SDSs are required to be presented in a consistent user-friendly, 16-section format. Section 1, Identification, includes all chemical product identifiers, supplier, manufacturer or distributor name and detailed contact information, recommended use, and restrictions on use, and emergency contact phone number. Section 2, Hazard Identification, includes exact classification of the chemical substance, all hazards, and required GHS label elements including precautionary statements and pictograms. Section 3, Composition/information on ingredients, includes all information on chemical ingredients and information on complex substances. If applicable, the confidential business information rules take priority, and confidential information about the chemical product may be omitted. Section 4, First Aid Measures, includes advice on first aid measures and symptoms and effects of exposure to chemical, acute and delayed, and indication of need for immediate medical attention. Section 5, Firefighting Measures, includes the requirements for extinguishing a fire caused by the chemical substance and specific hazards arising from chemical fire. Section 6, Accidental Release Measures, includes the emergency procedures needed to respond to spills or leaks of chemical product, environmental precautions, and proper methods of containment and cleanup. Section 7, Handling and Storage, includes guidelines for safe handling practices of chemical substance and safe storage, including incompatibilities. Section 8, Exposure Control/Personal Protection, includes occupational exposure limits of workplace, specific protection and prevention measures, and how to minimize exposure and risk. Section 9, Physical and Chemical Properties, provides details on each property of the chemical material. Section 10, Stability and Reactivity, provides all details in regards to chemical stability and possibility of hazardous reactions. Section 11, Toxicological Information, primary used by medical and health and safety professionals. This section includes all toxicological health effects and all available data to support the information. Section 12, Ecological Information, includes the evaluation of the environmental impact of the chemical substance on the environment, if released. 13. Section 13, Disposal Considerations, provides information on proper disposal of chemical substance including specific precautions. Section 14, Transport Information, includes all classification information for the transporting or shipment of the chemical product. Section 15, Regulatory Information, includes any additional regulatory information not found elsewhere in the SDS. Section 16, Other Information, includes the date of preparation or last revision, a key to all abbreviations or acronyms, and sources for data used to gather information for the SDS. SDS Requirements. Each division is responsible for maintaining a copy of SDS for all the chemicals that are present on site. SDS should be made available in the event of an emergency or at the request of any coworker. Coworkers may not bring chemicals on site unless reviewed and approved by the Environment, Health, and Safety Regional Manager, and the SDS has been filed with the division. Chemical Labeling. Chemical labeling. All containers of chemicals require proper labeling. Adoption of GHS has led to a new standard for chemical labeling by manufacturers and distributors. Picture below shows the different things listed on the label. Product identifier. Company information. Hazard pictograms. Signal word. Hazard statements. Precautionary statements. Chemical labeling. Secondary containers. Hazardous chemicals may be transferred into smaller containers from bulk drums or other primary containers. These smaller containers are called secondary containers and must be designed to be used as such. Secondary containers must also be labeled with chemical name. Hazards. It is the responsibility of the chemical user to ensure that all secondary chemical containers are properly labeled. Safe work practices. Good storage practices. Proper chemical storage practices include: utilize proper storage cabinets. Ensure the storage cabinets and the containers are properly labeled and readable. Ensure you segregate incompatible materials. No open containers in, or combustible stored on, flammable storage cabinets. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment. PPE is designed to protect you from workplace injuries or illnesses that could result from contact with chemical, electrical, mechanical, or other workplace hazards. Examples of PPE are face shields, safety glasses, hard hats, safety shoes, goggles, coveralls, gloves, vests, earplugs, respirators. If you are required to wear PPE, you should be provided with specific training to ensure that you use it properly. Thank you for participating in this monthly training. If you have any questions, please get with your safety department or reach out to your regional safety manager. They will be glad to answer any questions you might have. Have a safe day.